Nejwa, why do so many of us stay in lives that feel empty or unfulfilling, even when we know deep down that change is necessary?
I think it's because we're scared. We're scared of the unknown. You know how we say, better the devil you know? Like, you know how to survive the emptiness. You know the outcome. You know you've developed tools over the years to fill that emptiness, whether it's by scrolling on your phone or shopping excessively or falling into the victim mentality and just dwelling on things. And why is this happening that way? And you're used to it, right? So you depend on the strategies that have worked for you over the years. And the moment you think about maybe a new reality, you get scared because you're like, I don't know what that feels like. Even though it might be much better for you, you don't know how to survive good things. You know, when someone walks into your life after you've been in many really bad relationships and they try to love you properly, you sometimes you don't know how to accept that. Like you don't know what to do with it. You're not used to it. So you get overwhelmed by it because you've been so used to the opposite. So it's the same thing with this comfort that we find in emptiness. It's just fear of what we would do if that emptiness was filled up somehow.
And what do you think are three things that need to happen for people to overcome their fear of change and change their lives?
Three things that need to happen for people to overcome their fear of change. And I'm thinking of this on the spot, but I think the first thing is to learn how to become present with everything, the good and the bad. I think what a lot of us do is the moment we feel a little uncomfortable when we think about any kind of change in our lives, we distract ourselves with something. We don't want to sit with it. So that's what keeps us falling down the same patterns that we've always fallen into. And if you just give yourself permission and also give yourself the instruction to do something differently every time you find that urge to escape sitting with the discomfort of the change, and just tell yourself, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's not okay. Like maybe this is what needs to happen for your life to actually change. Just breathe through it and see what comes up for you. I find that when we do that, like when we aim to be that present with the good and the bad, our bodies start revealing to us all the things that have been bottled up over the years that say, you can't survive change. You need the stability that you've gotten used to over the years. And so, in action, you are showing your body that actually I can survive that change. And maybe in the past, I used to depend on others to help me get through it. But now I've realized that I can depend on myself because I am responsible for my own life and for my own healing. So, number one, I would say be present. Number two, I would say, stop negotiating your change with people who want you to stay the same. Like, stop going to the same people whose opinions you always get and to the same people whose approval you so badly want and just hope that they will have the answer. And I always say this to somebody struggling, but how do I just let go of their opinions? And how do I even trust myself in knowing the right path? And I always say, if you've trusted this many people to lead you to where you are right now, and clearly they haven't led you to the right place for yourself, why can't you trust yourself and give yourself the grace to maybe lead yourself to not the perfect place for you, but at least you will be able to say, I took part in every step of this path. Like, if you can easily trust somebody else to lead you somewhere, I think you, out of everyone in your life, deserve to be given that responsibility and the grace to fall down and maybe not get things right away. But we're so hard on ourselves. We feel like we need to be perfect. And that perfection standard is somehow in somebody else's hands and through their eyes. And even though we can tell they're not doing what's in our best interest, we still feel like I'm better off following in somebody else's footsteps or in the footsteps that they want for me than paving my own footsteps because I literally don't know what to do. And it's like, change the level of trust that you have with yourself and try to just shift the balance instead of trusting others so much with yourself and with your life and with your change. Say, I'm going to do that for myself. So the first thing is to be present. The second thing is to stop negotiating your change with people who want you to stay the same. And the third thing I would say is radical acceptance. And we hear everyone basically talking about radical acceptance. And what I discovered through my journey is the reason we struggle with radical acceptance is there's an undertone of you just say, just let things be and accept things as they are. And it's like, that's not what radical acceptance is. The definition of radical acceptance, and I talk about this quite a bit in my most recent book, The Only Constant, where I say a really big element of radical acceptance is accepting the part of you that's not accepting the change. Like, validate for yourself that if you were to be honest with yourself, you're not happy with whatever it is that just happened with the person who walked away from you, or with the person you had to walk away from, or with the job you just lost, or the job you said, I don't want anymore, or whatever the change is. Allow yourself to sit down and say, I actually don't feel good about this and I'm not okay with it. I really don't want to accept it. Radical acceptance isn't about saying I'm okay with the things I'm not okay with. It's about saying, I know what I'm not okay with, but I also know what's within my control, and changing this thing is not within my control. So I will let my energy go towards moving on and letting go instead of holding on and keeping myself captive in the past. So be present, stop negotiating your change with people who want you to stay the same, and radically accept your life.
I know you talk a lot about change. You post a lot of content around that on social media.
Hmm.
What's a painful lesson that you've had to learn in your life that you maybe don't talk about as much that forced you to make some sort of change?
If you want to lead a life that's different from the lives of those who raised you and those who you grew up around, you're going to have to stop following the same rules they followed. And you're going to have to stop getting their approval for how good or bad your decisions for yourself are. I found myself one day just in my car and having this big revelation that I wanted a life different from the lives of those around me, from the community I grew up in, from just like the cultural and religious norms, but I was still wanting the approval of those people. So if I want their approval and the life that they see for me is one that causes me misery and suffering, which path am I going down by seeking their approval? The exact same one that they went down and the exact same one they want for me. So what's the outcome going to be? It's going to be the exact same life they have and the one that they want for me. But if I want a different one, I'm going to have to let go of my need for their approval. It's life changing. You can't outgrow an environment that you are so badly wanting to belong to. You can't outgrow it because you want to be in it. So, how do you expect that you're going to outgrow it? And the fact that you are suffering so much and that you're hoping that you would outgrow it means that somewhere inside of you, you've already outgrown it. You just need to take the steps to let go of your need to be part of it. What is it that scares you when you feel like, oh, you're going to be unanchored from that environment? You're going to be expelled or exiled from that environment? What scares you about that? Because you know that the life you want is on the other side of that environment. So why do you have such a tight grip on it? And I don't say it with shame and I don't say it with judgment, because I struggled so much with this, and most of us do. So just ask yourself the question: if you do want a different life than the lives of those around you, why do you so badly want their approval?
And one of the things I've often said is you will feel way more alone spending time with the wrong people than you ever will like spending time like by yourself. And I think a lot of what you just said comes down to this fear of change and the anxiety around it. What do you think are some signs that somebody is spending time in the wrong environment that might not be so obvious?
The first sign that you're spending time in the wrong environment is how often you look for a distraction, whether it's scrolling on your phone, watching TV, getting up to just do anything to silence the noise, constantly having your headphones in, listening to something. Like, how often do you find yourself trying to escape the actual presence of that environment? To me, that's a huge telltale sign that whatever this current environment or reality is, it's not feeding the needs that you have. And so you're distracting yourself from sitting with that reality, because you know that if you sat with it long enough, it might force you to leave that environment, and it scares you to leave that environment. So you look for ways to make that environment bearable.
Right. And what do you think people should like do if you think that they're in like a friend group or they're spending time with people that aren't good for them? Like how can they kind of exit that without like shame and the guilt and all the other stuff that tends to come up?
I think with any big change and with any big exit, you're going to have to face that shame. It's going to bubble up. And maybe what stopped you in the past from walking away from friend groups that aren't good for you, or relationships that aren't good for you, or even a work environment that's not good for you, is that every time that shame bubbles up, you kind of want to push it down. So you say, I'm not going through with this. I'll just stick with this because I don't want to deal with that shame. So I think part of it is sitting with that shame and understanding where it comes from, and understanding why for so long it kept you in environments that kind of, they shrink you and say, this is the only way we will accept you. We're not going to accept the whole you. You need to fit in this box. So usually in a friend group, you might fit into the box of, oh, you're the nice one, you're the one who will answer the phone at 3 a.m. and you're the one who never expects anything, and you're the one who's always quiet, and you're the one who always does everything for everyone. There's a reason that you found comfort in that box for so many years. And to get out of that box, that shame is going to come and it's going to tell you, who the hell do you think you are to be able to get out of this? And who else is going to want to spend time with you? And you really think that you're, important enough to have people treat you differently and value you more and blah, blah, blah. And you'll come to realize, when you listen to that shame voice enough times, that voice never came from you. That voice was fed to you over the years, and you've internalized it as your own voice. So every time you try to leave, that voice comes and says, who the hell do you think you are? You can't do this. You can't survive without them. So deal with that shame. Listen to it and remind it that it is not actually a part of you. It was a part that was spilled on you, and you can cleanse yourself from it by listening to it enough times and practicing responding to it yourself. And the best way to do this is truly life changing, is pretend like you are your own lawyer. And if somebody were defending you against that shame, what would they say? And all of a sudden you're like, I am my own lawyer. If I were to hire the best lawyer that always finds the best argument to stand up for me, what would that lawyer say? And I'm going to say it. And so that empowering voice that stems from your inner wisdom comes to the surface and starts fighting for you. And really, you are fighting for yourself.
What are some of the things that you would recommend somebody do for themselves when they're dealing with change? Like, is it prioritizing journaling, therapy, fitness? Like, what types of things can people do to make sure that they're taking care of themselves when they're prioritizing a change in their life?
I don't care what it looks like, but any form of investing in yourself, any form of taking time away that you normally spend on people pleasing tendencies and making other people's lives easier and blah, 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 taking that time and doing something for yourself, even if it's doing nothing, even if it's resting. Journaling works for some people. For others, opening a voice note on their phone and speaking into it. For others, it's therapy, talk therapy. For others, it's, working with your body, somatic healing. Whatever it is, sit down and actually do an inventory of what your day looks like. What do your 24 hours look like? And ask yourself, next to every number of hours that you put, every chunk, is this time invested in myself or in others? And you will be surprised at how much of your time goes towards others, how much of your energy just goes towards others, doing things for them, worrying about them, thinking about them. And then ask yourself, how much of this time goes towards myself? And you'll find, just like any project in your life, any job, any school program, any volunteer opportunity, any relationship, the more time you invest in it, the more energy you invest in it, the more it grows and the more change you see within it. So if you are spending only, let's say, 1 or 2 hours investing in yourself and all of your other hours are being invested in others, well, those are the connections and the bonds and the relationships that are going to be growing in some way. And what about you? Like, where do you stand in all of this? So just ask the simple question, how much of my time am I spending investing in myself versus investing in others? And slowly take more and more of the time you're investing in others and invest it in yourself. And you will know, your body will tell you what you need to do. It might tell you, you know what? Today we're going to spend a couple hours learning how to make a new meal that's very nourishing. Today we're going to spend time learning what's actually good for our skin and for our hair. Like, your body will tell you where to spend that time. And the more and more you start listening to it, and the more and more you start trusting that what it's telling you is in your best interest, the more and more you will feel like you're comfortable being alone and making your own decisions for yourself, because all of a sudden you have this inner structure that tells you, well, if those people don't want to hang out with us, like, that's fine. There's this thing we can do and that thing we can do. You start finding the fruits of your energy to be tasteful, and you start investing more and more into those fruits.
Right. And what can somebody say to other people when they're in this process of change that don't necessarily agree with the direction they're going?
What can you say to people who don't agree with the direction that you're going in?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just say, I think a common hiccup is, specifically with like friends. You have friends like that are like, "Oh, like I can't believe you're abandoning me," or "I can't believe you don't want to go out anymore," or whatever the example is.
It's hard enough for you to deal with the changes that you're going through, let alone having to deal with how those around you are dealing with the changes that you're going through. So I would definitely prioritize your experience and what you need to actually go through with this change. Do you need people around you who are going to be taking the changes that you decide to make for yourself personally? If they think of themselves first before they think of you, then are those really your people? You know, what privilege do they have into your life that this change is taking away from them? Maybe that is what it is. Maybe that time, again, remember how we just talked about investing your time in yourself versus others. Is this time that you will be investing in yourself as a result of deciding to go through with this change, taking away from the time that maybe you were investing in them? And then why are they so worried only about how this is impacting them in their life and not you? So, the one question I tell people to ask themselves in the only constant when a situation like this happens is, does this person have my best interest in mind? If the answer is no, then this person is not your person, regardless of the context, even if it's family. I understand that it's a lot harder to cut bonds with family members or to set boundaries with family members, but when it comes to something that you really want to do, and even though it might not have a predictable outcome that's like 100% certain, the people in your life who have your best interest, even if they're scared for you, they will tell you, I'm worried about you. And I'm really worried that you're going to invest all of this time and energy into this thing that might not work out. But I'm here for you every step of the way. That's somebody who has your best interest. And I always, in the back of my head, I hear people say, well, what if the change I want to make is like a really bad one? Like I want to get into drugs or that's not what I'm talking about. You know, people who care about you in a situation like that would definitely, you know, approach a situation like that with love and with compassion. And they will understand that there is a reason you're trying to go down a wrong path for you. But the right approach never looks like, why are you doing this to me? When really it's a change you are choosing for yourself. You're not doing anything to them, you are doing something for yourself.
What about uncertainty? I feel like uncertainty creates a lot of anxiety and fear around change. How can people like deal with that on an ongoing basis?
We've heard this a lot. You know, if the path that you are taking is a new one, truly a new one, then you don't know what the outcome is going to be. The outcome is not going to be one that someone else has reached before you. It's not going to be an outcome that is 100% predictable. So, in a way, shift your thinking about uncertainty from seeing it as a really scary thing to a really exciting thing, because it could mean that your expectation is that you're going to go from here to here. But uncertainty might mean that instead of being here, you might actually reach a much higher level than the one that you were hoping for. Like sometimes certainty keeps you a lot smaller than you actually are. And uncertainty kind of opens the door for different opportunities and different things that you never ever saw coming. So when you look at uncertainty, again, you sit with yourself and you say, I know this is really scary. Like, I really don't know if what I'm doing is worth it. I really don't know if this investment that I'm putting in if I'm gonna have a return on that investment. But there's no other way to know what's gonna happen unless I actually go through with it. So it's a mixture of shifting your perspective and sitting with the discomfort of, instead of wanting to pull the plug on everything and say, I don't know, like if I'm not 100% sure that I'm not going to do this, it, instead of thinking that way, you say, like, just breathe through it. And if it's a bad outcome, I trust that I will be able to get through whatever that outcome is. And there is something about taking full responsibility and accountability that makes failure, and I'm putting this in air quotes, a lot easier to handle, because you can sit with yourself and say, Yep, I made those decisions knowing that there was a possibility that I would fail, and I own that fully. There's something about that element of choice that makes failure a lot easier to deal with.
There's a lot of like language and talk about the fact that like the universe has your back and just do the thing and you'll be rewarded. Um, and when it comes to change, do you think having that mentality gets people into trouble, or do you think they should have some level of structure with a plan? Like, I mean, obviously with relationships, it's different, but I'm talking about, job and stuff. I mean, I feel like if you just go out and wing it, you could get yourself into trouble. But I also think if you have like a super rigid structured plan, and if you're not good with like course correcting, you could also get yourself into trouble. So how do you recommend people like handle that framework?
You know how we as humans have basic needs of nutrition and rest and, very basic needs to actually keep going? I think with any decision in your life, whether it comes to a career or a career change where you're like, I'm gonna quit my job that's a 9 to 5 that has benefits and pays me a set salary in order to invest in this other thing, and the universe has my back. I am not a big proponent of that. I'm a proponent of making sure that you have the basic needs that you kind of draw that comparison with the basic human needs, and then what are the basic needs that your business has, or this idea that you have, what are the basic needs that are there? Is it having a steady flow of income until you get to a point where, with this new job, or this, maybe you're becoming an entrepreneur where you're starting to make some money? Is it keeping a job where you do like 4 hours a day, and all the other time that you have, you invest in that other job? But I don't ever advise people to just let go of something that's steady and safe to jump into something that you have no certainty where it's going to get. Like, if you are, let's say you are investing in a new project, let's say you're opening a school with someone. This is just an example I came up with. Yes, the universe always has your back, but sometimes the universe has having your back means, let me repeat that. Yes, the universe has your back, but sometimes the universe having your back means that it gives you a wake-up call and says, you're trying too hard with very little resources. You're not ready to actually take something on like this. So always make sure that you have something that you can fall back on if that's available to you. So a lot of people do consulting with me, and I will always tell them, keep a job on the side that's safe, that's easy, that in your mind you've registered it as, this is what ensures that I don't ever have to borrow money from someone unless I really have to, or that I won't ever have to rely on someone, or make this new thing that I'm working on um, in jeopardy of losing its integrity. Like, um, for example, I see many influencers, sometimes they start doing brand deals that don't really fit their brand just because maybe they need those deals for money. And again, no judgment, but you have to make sure that you're not putting the integrity of whatever it is that you are investing your time in at stake, just because you don't want to say, well, I've kept something that's steady and safe on the side. So when I made the switch from teaching to writing, I had my teaching job for a long time before I stopped teaching, or before I could fully say, I'm comfortable just doing my writing and my speaking and all of that. That doesn't mean that I didn't believe in my writing enough. It means that I was very diligent and smart in the way that I went about things. I never ever wanted to see my writing as like the source of income that I depend on, and I don't know how I didn't know who I was in the world at that point. I needed to make sure that everything that I put into it came from a place of comfort. And so I didn't put the weight of my life on my writing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think one of the other problems that people have when making change, and this might be a bit of a hot take, is that they don't realize the common denominator is themselves. And I think that people will bounce from relationship to relationship, job to job, and blame the job, blame the person, blame the situation. And yet they fail to look in the mirror and understand that for whatever reason, they also had a role in this. So I think, like, what are some of the symptoms of a situation where somebody is actually the common denominator? They need less change. They need to actually like focus on like staying put with themselves and not just using change as a distraction.
What are some of the symptoms that you might be in that situation? I think if you find yourself rushing and really wanting something to work out or really wanting to get to a certain milestone, that's a really big indication that you are relying on the environment around you to feel accomplished or to feel good about yourself or to feel like you're good enough. It's that rush instead of allowing the natural flow of life to take place. Or let's say, for example, I want to write a book. I could, if I wanted to, write a book in a month, but it's not going to be as good as the book that I write in 2 or 3 years because I'm taking in my life experiences. I'm not just focused on finishing the book, I'm actually focused on writing a great book. So I think rushing, and you know those people, we all have them in our lives where someone is just constantly looking for the next thing where they're going to feel good in some way. Whether it's, I want to buy that next thing that comes out and I need to stay on top of this and if I don't, then I'm agitated and I'm upset. There's a certain level of groundedness that comes with people who are content with their lives, even though their lives may have a lot of chaos, but they live a life in a way where they're not so urgently looking to get out of the chaos. There's a type of embracing that chaos and saying, this is what my life is, and I accept it as it is. And I'm not going to try so hard to pretend like I'm over things that I'm not over. And I'm not going to try so hard to pretend like I'm at a point in my life that I'm not actually at. There's something beautiful about that because you look at those people and you're like, I can tell that you have a lot going on. And at the same time, I can tell that you are at peace with it all. And sometimes being around those people agitates you because there's a part of you that's like, why can't I be like that? Or why aren't they more alarmed at what's going on in their lives? And it's like, it's because you're asking yourself why you're so alarmed at what's going on in your life.
Yeah, it's the projection trap, right? Where like people, it's like when if somebody's scrolling on social media or like at a conference and they like hate people that are like, oh my god, that person was just got lucky to be successful or to make that much money. And 99 times out of 100, it's because the person is upset they don't have the money, the success, or whatever, and they don't know how to get there. And so when they get kind of triggered, whenever they see somebody who has what they want, and their reaction is just, in a way to protect our securities or protect our ego, is just to kind of like get defensive and be reactive, like towards whatever it is that that person has.
There's a quote that says, the grapevine is always too high for those who can't reach it. And It's just about how some people are like, well, I don't really like grapes when they can't reach the grapes. Like, so I don't really want to have that level of fame, or I don't really want to have that level of reach. I'm content with the life that I have, but really it's because they want that, but they just don't know how to reach it. So a lot of people will pretend. I guess the more day to day thing that you can say is people will pretend not to like you if they know that they can't get you, you know?
Yeah.
And people will pretend not to like what you have when they can't get what you have, but they actually want it and they actually want you, but they pretend like they don't because they know they can't get you. Um, so many people do that with everything in life, with a job, with a relationship, with a career, with a program, and that mentality of really needing to come across as I don't need anyone and I don't need anything, and it's
Yeah,
protective.
I mean, it's like the person who says, I would never want to have that much money. And it's like, really? It's like you kind of have to start to question things. I mean, I think there's limits to everything, but generally speaking, you're right. It's like we tend to, just as a way to protect ourselves, like just default to, I don't want that. I'd never want to look like that. Or that person's too obsessive with their fitness. And I mean, and obviously there can be moments and times where that may be true, but I just think it's important for people to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, all right, is this coming from a place of like truth, or is it coming from a place of like insecurity where you are, afraid of just admitting that you want that, but you don't think you can have it right now? And there's been a lot of talk over the years about, I mean, just in general, that people are set in their ways. Do you think that the older you get, the harder it is to make a change?
I mean, research proves it. The older you get, the harder it is for you to make changes because there is over the years you become accustomed to certain ways of thinking and doing things, and you befriend people who are similar, or people who don't challenge those ways, or people who make you feel validated and comfortable in living that way. But also, a lot of um, fear comes up over the years just because you know the consequences. It's the same thing with going to um, going on a roller coaster, for example. When you're much younger, you're not as scared as you are when you're older, because when you're older, you know more about the consequences. When you're younger, you're just like, everybody's doing this.
Might as well, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there is a correlation there, and it's very valid because there's also something inside of you that's saying, how much time do I really have to try this new thing again, or get into a new relationship again, or try a new career path, like switch altogether and get into it, and how many years do I have to waste, and all of that. There is that way of thinking about it, but there's also another way of thinking about it, and it says, well, how many more years do you have, and do you want to continue living them in the way that you're living right now, when you know that that's not your ideal way of living? So why not just try? And sometimes 1 year of living with your authentic truth, or living in a way that really aligns with who you are, can make you forget about decades of living the complete opposite way. There's something about that presence that you're able to feel with life as you're living it on your own terms that just makes everything else so insignificant. So if you find yourself stuck in the age dilemma of, how much more time do I really have, and is it worth this risk, and blah blah blah, you are the only one who gets to decide whether it's worth the risk or not. Do you want to continue living your life in this way? If the answer is no, then you have to do something differently, and it's going to have consequences, and it's going to be scary, and it might not work out. But would you rather live with the I tried and it didn't work out, instead of I didn't try and I always wondered if it would?
I think that's a great way to end our combo, Nejwa. I don't know where to go
It
from
felt
there.
like 2 minutes, I swear.
Well, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. If people aren't familiar with your work or they want to follow you on social media, like where's the best place to do all that?
You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. It's all the same username at Najwa Zebian, NAJWAZEBIAN. I have 6 books, and the seventh one is coming out next year. So
Nice.
you can
Congrats.
find them everywhere.
Well, cool. Well, thanks again for coming back on the show. I think my audience is going to get a lot of value out of this.
Thank you for having me. This was great.